Alright guys, so as always, we got an article here talking about 3 problems the Cincinnati Bengals must address going into the bye week. I want to start this video off by giving my 3 problems I think they need to address, and then we'll go over this website's problems and kind of see where they're thinking and kind of give my thoughts and analysis based on that. So starting off right away, my 3 things, right? Now, obviously, yes, you can be very generic and say the offense, and that's not really, really a breakdown of what they need to correct/fix, right? I will say number 1 is the tight end position. And it doesn't mean that we need to go out there and trade for a tight end. I know we don't do in-season trades. I know we, kind of like to keep in-house here. But again, then that might be something we need to work on. Irv Smith, the connection between Joe Burrow and Irv Smith. The connection between Joe Burrow and Mitchell Wilcox, Drew Sample. They want to utilize more Tanner Hudson. There needs to be something with this tight end group. There's no if, and, or buts here. When we had Hayden Hurst in there, Hayden Hurst was opening up this offense in some way. Obviously, he did not play every single game for us. He did have some injuries, but he was able to help open up this offense. And even if, again, at the tight end group, I'm not expecting them to go out there and put up 300 yards a game. I'm not expecting them to go out there and put up crazy yards a game. If they get 1 key, 2 key, 3 key first downs during the game where maybe they catch the ball across the middle for 5 or 6 yards, that's absolutely fine. There's no problem with that. That is, a huge W for us, and that's really all we need. I mean, look at last week, right? In the second half there. Imagine if, Irv Smith caught a couple passes, for 5 or 6 yards that got its first downs and maybe converted, 2 more or 3 more first downs on the drive. I mean, we go back to last week with a Cam Taylor interception in the field goal range where, it ended up being that we went 3 and out. Well, who was the guy that Joe threw to on the 3rd down and 10? It was Irv Smith. Now, obviously, it was an incomplete pass. It was a bad pass. It was still in his hands, but it was a bad pass. That's because there's no connection between Joe Burrow and, Irv Smith in any way. And if you watched last week's game, we actually went through every single play on the channel yesterday. You can see, I mean, there's some passive plays where Irv is open. And again, like I said, I'm not trying to sit here and say, like, oh yeah, from an aerial shot, of course, everyone looks open. When the quarterback's on the field, they have a small little vision to throw out of. They can't see everything we can see. But it seems like even when Joe knows Irv's open, he targets other people over Irv Smith, right? And it just seems like he doesn't want to target Irv Smith. Maybe that's because of the connection issue of, again, those two aren't really on the same page. Maybe it's just because he doesn't feel like Irv Smith can contribute as much as other guys and he's trying to get the ball to the playmakers. But that needs to stop. I mean, that needs to be addressed during this bye week because, going into this season, Irv Smith was the tight end, the big tight end pickup we did this offseason. And obviously, yes, he's been hurt for a couple of games, around 3 or 4 games. But with that being said, he needs to get involved in this offense. We picked him up for a reason. We didn't pick him up to be like a backup tight end. Trust me, if we did, we wouldn't have paid him the money we paid him to be that backup third-string tight end, right? We picked him up to be a starting tight end on this roster and help this offense out and help this offense move. And with his struggles during this offense so far, has been a huge contribution to why our offense hasn't been looking that good. It's not just, everyone else. I'm sorry, it's everyone on this team, period, not just one player. But at the end of the day, if he even had 4 or 5 yards, per game, a couple receptions, then you have Tyler Boyd, Trent Irwin, T. Higgins, all these guys. Everything contributes to success, right? It's not a one-player game. It's a team game here. So that's number 1. That's the first problem I think that needs to be addressed 1,000% is that problem. Number 2, offensive line. And listen, that's also a very generic, kind of system there, right? It's a very generic, just like offensive. What I mean by this is stop calling shotgun plays. You might say, well, isn't it a play calling type of thing? No. Because there's a reason why they're calling shotgun plays. Even with Joe Burrow's calf being healthier and being back and being almost 100%. The problem is offensive line. They don't believe their offensive line can block correctly with, for him to be under center. They don't trust their offensive line enough to be under center because, again, it was at first his calf strain, and I understand that. A lot of the reason why we ran shotgun over the last couple weeks was because of his calf strain, and, you can't really risk him under center because if under center fails, say Volson falls down, someone falls down, Joe is sacked within seconds. While with shotgun, he has time to either throw the ball away or more time to do stuff. But last week, and again, the Cardinals game too, both those games, it looked like Joe was a lot healthier. He claims himself he's a lot healthier. Yet we were still playing very pedestrian of, every single play out of shotgun. And I think a lot of it is the offensive line. Now, I'm not saying we go into this bye week and then we, come out of this bye week with the best offensive line in football. But I think there needs to be things that, they address going into this bye week. And I'm not saying that the offensive line sucks and we need to completely rehaul. No. There just needs to be things that get worked out in this bye week. Whatever that is the case, Frank Pollock, that's his job to do. This offensive line just needs to be addressed and they need to look into things. And if they do want to pick up a free agent, Collins is still a free agent right now, guys. I would not be against the idea of maybe picking up Collins, maybe picking up somebody as a rotational piece, just stuff like that, just in case they need somebody. I mean, we saw last week Orlando Brown went down with injury. We really needed a left tackle to come in and be a backup. And also, kind of figure out the whole Jackson Carmen situation. Why is he still not, working out? But anyway, number 3, and the final thing I will say they need to address during this bye week is going to be creative plays that get people open. And yes, again, like I said, I understand Brian Callahan came out the other day and said, it's really the players. It's not. He said it. Let me correct myself. He said it's the coaches and the players, but he said the play calling is not the problem. And that it's really just, as always, a failure execution on the players. And players outside outside Jamar Chase need to start making plays. The play calling, I feel like, has this whole entire year so far, it hasn't been on the same page as the team. And what I mean by that is I feel like, the play calling very vanilla. They're keeping it very soft. And a lot of the reason why most season was because of Joe Burrow's calf strain, right? You don't want to go out there and go crazy, do crazy things because you can't, right? You really are limited with his calf strain. But it seems like even with the fact that, his calf strain is more healthier and back, he still is this offense is still being very limited. The play calls are very limited. And, that needs to change, right? And I understand you're like, well, we couldn't try out any of these crazy plays because of it being limited. And I get that. I respect that. But at the end of the day, you need to, now that he is back and healthier, you now need to open up that offense a little bit. Now you need to start processing, more exotic plays, more crazy plays, trick plays, and get this offense popping. So let's talk about their website and what they think. So first off, T. Higgins and Joe Burrow's connection. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a connection between everyone, not just Joe Burrow and T. I think this is a very, kind of like a exclusive connection. I mean, yeah, I do agree. Yes, obviously every single connection between Tyler Boyd, between Joe, between T. Higgins and Joe. But yeah, T definitely has struggled. Now, T has had injury concerns, so it's dealing with injury throughout the season so far. And I do like to remind people of the Week 2 game versus the Ravens where T. Higgins had 2 touchdowns and 86 yards, which I don't think a lot of people remember that game. But I do agree that T and Joe's connection needs to kind of get more on pace because there are some throws, and we saw last week, the week before that, where it's like we throw to T. Higgins and, it's just offline. It's offline consistently. And again, this is a connection issue, I feel like, with the whole offense with Joe, every receiver, not just T. But I will say, you get T going 100%, and things all start to fall into place with already having 7-11, in that connection atmosphere. Number 2, scheme diversity in the run game. This is actually something that somebody commented down below, and I do agree with very, very much, is that a lot of the reasons why we're probably failing to run the ball or we're having problems running the ball is because of the fact that, we're running everything out of shotgun. And it is very, very true. I mean, at the end of the day, when you run everything out of shotgun, shotgun's not a bad formation. But when you run it every single play of the game and you just run every single play out of it, it's a lot easier to shut down than, let's say, for example, running something like, under center, right? Because then you can run end arounds, then you can run trick plays, and you can still do the same thing with shotgun. It's just you want to create a diversity in your play calling. You don't want to have a very stale play calling of, okay, we're gonna run this, this, and this is easy to stop, and this is easy to stop. You want to change it up a little bit and actually, calling a little bit more, diversity in the run game. 90% of our runs is straight up the middle. That's 90% of our runs. And that's not going to work, right? Sometimes you need to run a toss play. Sometimes you need to run an end around play. Sometimes you need to run something that's not just run the ball straight up the middle and see what happens. Because at the end of the day, it's not going to work if that's all you're doing. It's not efficient because teams know that, right? The way you keep teams, honest / off balance is by running end arounds, by running, different plays that just makes the team have to focus on different things. Alright, and then quality of play from reserve defensive tackles. Nothing to address with defensive tackle depth prior to the season. Zach Carlola were locked to be the backups, providing a pass rush. Carter has 5 pressures on 89 opportunities and a run rate of 6%, stopping the run. Yeah, I will say going into our bye week, I think our defense is something that we don't need to address. I think it's something that, we need to definitely work on to get better. But I don't think this is something that I would focus too much on. And I'm not just saying that because of recency bias, because trust me, I understand the Titans game, and we got destroyed in the Titans game. But at the end of the day, I would focus more on offense than defense, I would say. But I do agree that, yes, we have some backup defense tackles who, as it shows right here, other than BJ Hill and DJ Reader, it's not looking too great. And it says right here, I know it says we're blocked as backups behind DJ Reader and BJ Hill. The trio is quite simply not good. And I get that, right? And I do get that. And we didn't really expect them to be that good going into the season. We really expected a pass rush to really step up, and Miles Murphy and Trey Hendrickson, all those guys really step up, and so far it's been wishy-washy. But how do I put this? I don't think you're gonna get any better out of those guys. They're decent guys, they're decent players, but they're not really that good. And I don't think, I get the perspective of well, you gotta expect the best, you gotta want the best for them. But I don't think it's going to change anything. I don't think it's going to cause anything to get better by focusing them on their bye week when we got to focus on the offense more. I think that's kind of how I look at it. Those guys are mediocre players, and that's kind of okay. There's nothing wrong with that. They're not bad. I think they're just mediocre. And, if you want to say, well, they need to get more involved. Well, yes, I do agree with you, and you could say context-wise that, Ludini could, scheme fit them better in the defense to be more productive. But at the end of the day, if a player's not really that amazing or great, they're not going to be that great. It is what it is, right? And, maybe you say, well, then what do we do? Well, maybe then you get more of the starters involved. The problem is, again, then you're taking the starter away from other plays. So, guys, tell me down below your thoughts and opinions, though. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.